NASA captures footage of a UFO evading a missile, flashes above the moon during Apollo 12, a saucer-shaped object drifting during Apollo 16, a silver orb blasting past an astronaut in open space, and more. These are disturbing things NASA accidentally photographed. There have been conspiracies surrounding the moon ever since the Apollo missions. One man at the center of that is Dr. Ken Johnston. Born on a US Army Air Corps base in 1942, he went on to become one of the only 4 civilian astronaut consultant pilots at NASA. We're talking about the guy who helped train Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins before they headed to the moon. Johnston claims that when the Apollo astronauts came back, they brought photos, high-resolution photos, showing what he describes as ancient alien cities and the ruins of incredibly advanced technology on the surface. Domes made of glass, stone towers. He says some of the technology they found could actually manipulate gravity. Now, NASA apparently wanted those images gone. Johnston was ordered to destroy a nearly complete collection of high-quality 8x10 prints from the Apollo program. He refused. But those photos, they're not available from NASA today. What little is online is much lower resolution than what Johnston held on to. He eventually went public with all this. A Jet Propulsion Laboratory director asked him to resign after he was quoted criticizing NASA in a book called Dark Mission. Johnston said no, so he was fired. "I have nothing to lose. I've quarreled with NASA and I got fired," he said. Johnston doesn't even like being called a whistleblower. In his mind, he was just giving the public information that they had a right to know in the first place. He says the US government has been sitting on evidence of ancient alien civilizations on the moon for over 4 decades. And he's not totally alone in this. Over the last 40 years, a growing number of scientists, engineers, and technicians have accused NASA of hiding information about strange objects in space and covering up signs of life, including evidence reportedly picked up by the Viking probe back in the 70s. Now, whether you believe that or not, the man did give up his career over this, so that part at least is hard to dismiss. Apollo 12 has this weird little footnote in NASA history that keeps popping back up, and it all comes from some old mission reports and images that got declassified and reshared years later. Back in November 1969, astronauts Charles Conrad and Alan Bean were on the moon during the Apollo 12 mission when they noticed something strange. In the mission transcripts, they talk about brief flashes of light off in the distance, sudden sparks that would just appear and then fade out again. During the landing phase, Bean was checking outside using a small optical telescope built into the lander when he noticed something strange drifting past the moon's horizon. You could see these lights, particles of light, flashes of light, just sailing off in space, Bean told Mission Control. And of course, we have these images showing small bright spots near the moon's horizon. The more grounded explanations are things like camera artifacts, reflections, debris floating near the spacecraft, catching sunlight in odd ways. Space photography can do some pretty strange tricks with light, especially back then when the cameras were a lot less advanced than what we have now. But remember, the astronauts also saw these weird flashes in real time, so you can't just brush it all off as camera issues. This incredible piece of footage comes from Space Shuttle mission STS-48 back in 1991, recorded by NASA cameras. You can see a small object moving across the frame from right to left there. It looks like a little white dot. Now, at first you may think it's a meteor or something, space junk. What happens next will change that. Suddenly, there's a bright white flash nearby, and the object immediately changes direction and speeds off, narrowly avoiding the missile, which whizzes by where it just was. Take a look at this. Now, how was this never a bigger story? Not very easy to write off in weather balloon or space junk my ASS. Take a look at this footage. See if you notice the strange silver orb fly past the frame. Here's the footage slowed down. That footage comes from a mission in November 1984. What was that thing whizzing by? We have no idea. Could be space debris, could be something stranger. Aside from the possible UFO thing though, the footage is also interesting and freaky for another reason. It shows astronaut Dale Gardner floating completely alone in space. He's not actually attached to a tether. The mission was called 2 Up, 2 Down. 2 communication satellites, Westar 6 and Palapa B2, had both drifted into the wrong orbits and were basically space junk. NASA sent Space Shuttle Discovery and a crew of 5 to bring them home and launch 2 new ones in their place. To pull it off, the astronauts used jetpacks which let them fly freely in open space, while a capture tool called the Stinger let them grab onto spinning satellites. Joseph Allen tackled the first retrieval, flying out more than 300 kilometers above Earth to wrangle Palapa B2, with Anna Fisher guiding him back using the shuttle's robotic arm. Gardner handled Westar 6, and that's when the famous footage was taken. Neither of these satellites looked anything like the Orb, by the way. The Orb was much smaller. Anyway, both satellites were retrieved, so the mission was a success, but that was the last time NASA ever used untethered jetpacks for a spacewalk. It was just too big a risk. You probably don't need me to tell you that this image is absolutely nuts. You may not know that the image is 100% genuine. It's not a scene from a Marvel movie. One of the clearest shots ever taken of a gigantic jet, a super rare kind of lightning that shoots upward instead of hitting the ground. NASA astronaut and U.S. Air Force Major Nicola Rea Ayers caught it from the International Space Station while flying over Mexico and the southern U.S. Gigantic jets are part of this weird group of upper atmosphere lightning events that happen way above normal storms. Some of them reach 50 to 60 miles high, pushing all the way up toward the edge of space. They are insanely quick. They're like gone in a blink. Usually glow this bright electric blue because of nitrogen in the air getting energized. They're so rare that scientists still rely mostly on lucky photos like this one to study them. We're going to talk more about Apollo 12 for a minute though. UFO researcher Scott C. Waring was reviewing images from the mission when he noticed something in the distance. In around 30 different photos, this small object hovers above the moon, and it doesn't always look identical. In some frames it shifts slightly or changes position, so it's not just a fixed glitch in the film or something like that. According to Waring, quote, "I found this object in the background. Now, if it was in a single photo, I might have some doubts about it. However, it is in 30 plus photos. This object is not only in other photos, but it changes its distance away from the camera and it changes its angle of view. What do you all think about this one? Share your thoughts down below." This NASA image was captured during the Apollo 14 mission in 1971. It's an image of the surface of the moon, but in the bottom right-hand corner, you can clearly see what looks like a saucer with lights. Can this be written off as light reflection on the camera lens? Sure, that's likely what NASA would say, but I think many of us have come to realize that NASA never comes out and says something is genuinely unexplained, it seems. I mean, they just try to brush everything off as something mundane, and some of their explanations make sense, others seem flimsy at best, so I don't know. This could go either way. And the same goes for this image here. This one's from Apollo 15 in 1971. Hovering over the moon is this bright blue glowing mass. What is it? No idea. Some would say a UFO, others would write it off as debris from the capsule or some camera anomaly. Doesn't help that this image is pretty low quality, but it is cool. I mean, it would make for a great album cover, if nothing else. This one's pretty famous. Apollo 16 was NASA's 5th successful lunar mission, and for the most part, it went the way you'd expect. Astronauts John Young, Thomas Mattingly, and Charles Duke did their thing on the moon, and then they headed home. But somewhere on that return trip, something got caught on film that people are still talking about to this day. The crew managed to record a few seconds of footage through one of the command module windows using a 16mm camera shooting at 12 frames per second. And what shows up in those frames is, well, it looks like a flying saucer, not a smudge, lens flare, or some, ambiguous blob. An actual classic disc shape. NASA put forward explanations, but they never quite landed for a lot of people, and when the footage later became harder to track down online, that only made the skeptics more suspicious. In the spring of 1953, something supposedly fell out of the sky over the Arizona desert near Kingman. The story largely comes from Arthur Stansel, a mechanical engineer who worked with the Air Force at the time. He claimed he was part of the team dispatched to the crash site, and what he says he saw there swiftly covered up. According to Stansel, half buried in the sand was a small disc-shaped craft, smooth, shiny, and metallic. It was also seamless, meaning no rivets, panels, or visible joints of any kind. It looked, he said, like the whole thing had been formed from a single piece of metal. Very strange. The craft wasn't even the most unsettling part. Nearby, inside a tent set up at the scene, was a body. Stansel described it as roughly 4 feet tall, humanoid with dark brown skin. Then everything got packed up and hauled away. The craft, the body, any photos, any footage, all of it was loaded onto trucks and disappeared. And that was that. Stansel eventually went public with his account, but by then there was nothing left to prove it. Whatever went down in that desert in 1953, if anything, it's been completely covered up. That has been the video. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically,